1692, and Salem Village lies pinned between the Atlantic and a forest that seems to lean in to listen. The roofs carry winter like a burden. Chimneys lift thin signals of survival into a sky the color of pewter. Inside the wooden houses, families press close to their hearths, not only for heat, but for courage. The timbers creak and pop as if the houses themselves are thinking. Mothers hush babies with hymns. Fathers sort tools by touch. Children watch the doorway the way sailors watch the horizon. They are a people who believe they are watched. By God, by magistrate, by enemies whose faces they know, and by an enemy they cannot see. There is a weather to their days that has nothing to do with wind. A climate of quarrels over fences and fuel. Of sermons that sting like sleet, of debts remembered precisely, and kindnesses recalled vaguely. The fields are narrow, the distances shorter than pride, and words travel farther than horses. In the tavern at evening, the talk is practical, rates, firewood, roads, but under it runs a darker current, the old river of fear that all frontiers breed. Beyond the fences the woods begin, and beyond the woods anything might happen. A war party, a wolf, a story told so often that it becomes indistinguishable from the world. Into this charged air comes a spark no larger than a child's cry. The story will not begin with a trumpet, but with a silence broken by a name spoken too softly, and then again, louder. In a village like this one, where the ground is stony, belief grows like a thistle, hardy, fast, and difficult to pull up once rooted. What follows is the anatomy of a panic told from the inside, not as a parade of monsters, but as the step-by-step way ordinary people convince themselves that fear is wisdom. Draw a line through the center of Salem Village, and you will cut more than a map. You will split a temper. To the east, nearer Salem town, stand households whose fortunes incline toward trade. They think in barrels, tides, and prices. They look outward and speak of ships. To the west, the farms thin toward the woods. Families there keep their heads down over rocky soil and count what they can hold in their hands. Fence rails, turnips, lambs. It is not that one half is godly and the other careless. It is that they want different kinds of safety. At the center stands the meeting house, timbered and plain, where safety has become a subject of argument. How much should the minister be paid? Who will cart his wood? Will the parish grant him the deed to the parsonage so that he belongs to them and they to him? Questions like these have answers in pounds and shillings, but they are heard in the key of honor and insult. A rate voted is a loyalty sworn. A refusal to haul wood is a declaration of war. Lawsuits flower like thistles. Boundary stones are nudged in frost. And every conversation has a second conversation beneath it that everyone hears and no one names. Into this fault line steps Reverend Samuel Parris, a man who reads his duty in bold type. He has the severity of a convert and the tender pride of one who has chosen the second road after failing on the first. His preaching is a mirror held up to sin at very close range. He knows the difference between laxity and treason, and suspects the second is a flower that grows from the first. Those who wanted a shepherd find a watchman. Those who wanted a watchman find a judge. The East looks at him and sees a burden on trade. The West looks and sees a bulwark against corruption. Between them, the meeting house becomes an arena. Every Sabbath is a referendum. Every petition a campaign. Every pew a party. The village that should gather to remember heaven gathers to rehearse its grievances. When a crisis comes, and one is coming, their quarrels will turn from splinters to spears. A community that cannot agree on firewood will find it fatally simple to agree on an enemy. To understand what will happen, you must learn the grammar of their fear. In this grammar, the devil is not a metaphor. He is a litigant. Witches are not figures for sin. They are neighbors who have signed the wrong book. Scripture speaks with a voice that brooks no footnotes. Thou shalt not suffer a witch to live. An English statute carried across the sea echoes the text. Ministers quote learned treatises on demonology. Ordinary farmers quote their ministers. A cow that sickens after a quarrel is an argument. A child's fever is an affidavit. A lightning-struck tree is a sermon in the road. The world has edges that cannot be crossed by plough or boat, and those edges are patrolled by spirits. In such a place, a physician's shrug is not an end of inquiry. It is the beginning. Where medicine fails, testimony flourishes. Where proof is elusive, piety offers its own kind of evidence. If a thing can be imagined within the frame of doctrine, it can be believed. And belief alters what the eyes report. This is not stupidity. It is a complete system. Within it, to doubt the reality of witchcraft is to doubt the reality of the devil. And to doubt him is to doubt the seriousness of sin. Caution looks like complicity. Mercy looks like weakness. Patience looks like the devil's favorite word, later. When the first strange fits disturb the minister's house, the village will not stand at a fork between superstition and science. It will stand at a fork between two fidelities, to compassion for the afflicted, or to vigilance against the enemy. In choosing the second, many will believe they are choosing both. Only later will they learn that fear, once invited into court, becomes a witness who never stops talking. At the parsonage, life is a narrow hallway with doors opening onto work and prayer. Samuel Parris sits late with his ledger and his sermon, his quill stuttering in the candle's breath. The arithmetic of duty runs in his head. The rate owed, the chords of wood promised, the lines of text that must be hammered flat into obedience. He is a convert twice over, from trade to ministry, from independence to office, and converts guard their new homes with anxious zeal. His words in the pulpit carry the rasp of a sawing conscience. Those who love him hear fidelity. Those who hate him hear accusation. It amounts to the same thing. The village feels measured by him, weighed and found wanting, or wanting to be found. Around him moves a household that is also a weather system. Betty, 9, and Abigail, 11, are girls in a world that has little room for girls' questions. They know how to card wool and recite catechism, how to keep their eyes down and their ears open. John Indian carries wood and watches, the way a man learns to watch when his safety depends on it. Tituba tends the kitchen with a practiced grace. When the day's chores lift, the girls, like all children in every century, go looking for stories. Some are permitted. Psalms, providences, the approved catalogue of wonders that end in edification. Others are not. But stories do not carry author's marks, and memory is an omnivore. Tituba has lived in places where the night sky is a different colour and the sea tells other truths. She has learned lullabies whose notes the New England wind does not know. Around the hearth, where flames throw puppets of light up the wall, questions become charms and answers become pictures. A knotted string waits by a spoon. A spill of salt looks like a sign. A dream is told as if it has hands. None of this would matter in a village that trusted itself. But this village has been drilling for panic like a militia drills for war. When the girls begin to show the first tremors, stiffness at odd moments, a look that goes past the person speaking to them, Paris hears the echo of his own sermons coming back through their bodies. He is terrified, and terror makes him practical. He sends for a physician, and when the man's medicine box offers nothing, the conclusion seems ready-made. If the devil has reached into the parsonage, then he has reached into the heart of the village. Paris, whose strength is certainty, steps toward the certainty nearest to hand. The house that nurtured bedtime wonders becomes a courtroom, where even silence is compelled to answer. The first time, Betty freezes in meeting, her small spine iron under her dress. A murmur travels through the pews like a draft. The second time is louder. A cry, a contortion, an arm flung up as if to ward off a blow no one else can see. By the third, the village understands that something has begun that is not going to end by itself. Abigail complains of invisible pinchers. Her voice rises into a register that makes men look at the floorboards. Other girls answer like Echo and Antiphon, Ann Putnam Jr., whose family's grievances are a second catechism, Mercy Lewis, whose name is an argument against despair, Mary Walcott, who points into corners with a finger that draws a crowd. The afflicted do not act alike. That is part of why they are believed. One goes rigid as a stake driven into earth. Another writhes as if trying to crawl out of her own skin. They fall into blankness and then into speech. And the speech has a property that makes it more terrible than their silence. It contains names. A physician, honest in his ignorance, says the words that turn fear into policy. The evil hand. It seems like diagnosis and feels like permission. Neighbors arrive to help and stay to witness. The room collects breath and rumor the way wool collects burrs. A pin is found where a pin should not be and becomes a diagram of intention. A bruise rises on a wrist and is called a bite. The skin's own mysteries are recruited into testimony. Fathers bring psalm books and discover that verses falter when the air is thick with cries. Mothers sit on edge of bed and make bargains they will revise later into prayers. The magistrates are sent for. They do not come as skeptics. They come as men whose office is to define danger so that other men can sleep. They find a room that feels like the inside of a story and do not trust themselves to contradict it. When the afflicted point, the magistrates look. When the afflicted name, the magistrates listen. The first warrants are written with hands that know they are writing more than orders of arrest. It is not yet a hunt, but it is a rehearsal, and the lines are easy to learn. In Salem Village, a child's cry has become a kind of gavel. In a kitchen-turned chamber, with the smell of ash and broth hanging under the rafters, Tituba sits on a stool, while questions tidied into accusations come at her from 3 directions. She is a woman without a country here, except the country of the household that can be stormed by a single man's anger. She has learned to survive by listening for the shape of the answer wanted. Whether she is struck or only threatened, whether she is promised mercy or only shown its absence, something in her loosens and pulls. She tells a story that fits the village's hunger as if it were baked for it. A tall man in a black coat who can be everywhere and no place. A red cat whose tail sketches curses on the snow. A yellow bird that brings messages like a wicked angel. A black dog the size of a bad memory. a book that opens itself because it is always already open. She has signed, she says. And others have signed. There are more names than she can remember, and exactly as many as her questioners require. A confession is a scaffold built from words. Each rung offers the interrogators another step up toward the view they already imagine. Tituba's story does something else as well. It makes witchcraft into a conspiracy. This is not a single enemy with a single grievance. This is a league with officers and errands and a plan. The idea is intoxicating to people starved for coherence. It suggests that every vexation of the past years can be laid at one door, and that door can be broken down by the authorized use of fear. The villagers leave the parsonage with more names than they brought. The list begins to feel like a map. Tituba, who has bought a reprieve with her imagination, is shackled anyway, because reprieves in a panic are always conditional. Outside, the night looks busy in the way night does when people have decided that it means something. On a March day that begins raw and turns mean, the meeting house fills from wall to wall. Deodat Lawson, who once ministered here, has returned to preach and finds himself enlisted in a theatre where doctrine will be acted at full volume. In the morning the afflicted are examined, chairs scrape, a clerk sandshakes the wet ink with hands that remember other petitions. The magistrates incline like weather vanes toward the wind of testimony. A girl stiffens and points, and the room's breath goes shallow. Another doubles over in a paroxysm whose violence feels like punctuation. The accused stand as still as they can, because stillness looks like innocence in a place that has forgotten what innocence looks like. In the afternoon, Lawson climbs the pulpit stairs and opens the scriptures. His voice tries to lay a straight path across a floor that has already learned to tilt. He speaks of snares and delusions. Below him, a shriek interrupts a sentence. He resumes, and two voices answer with groans that carry the tone of prophecy. To those who came seeking proof, it feels as though the devil himself has risen to heckle the word. Lawson records it later with tidy letters. What he saw with his eyes, what the congregation felt in its bones. By evening the yard is mud and rumour, and every man who leaves believes he has been present at the unveiling of a plot. Spectacle has done what argument could not. It has converted doubt into a memory of terror. And memories of terror are the most persuasive kind of evidence known to law or theology. By June, the court of Oyer and Termina sits in Salem town, chairs set for judgment, and a space cleared for performance. Bridget Bishop is led in, a woman who has never trimmed her temper to fit the world's expectations. She dresses brighter than the average day allows. She speaks in a voice that makes tidy men uncomfortable. That is enough to make her memorable. In a panic, memorable becomes dangerous. The afflicted display their injuries like a chorus that knows its cues. A ragdoll with pins is produced and handled as if it could bleed. A witness swears a board tore itself from the meeting house wall during Bishop's examination, as if the building had an opinion on her soul. Men testify to cider gone sour, to hens that stopped laying when Bishop passed the yard, to quarrels that left bruises on pride that now rise on skin. Bishop says what the innocent always say and the guilty often do. She denies steadily. She has no craft. She has no compact. She has done nothing that scripture forbids, except live in a way that suggests a woman might stand as a person. It is not enough. The judges have decided that the invisible can be weighed in visible scales. The jury nods along, because the sound of nodding has become the sound of safety. Sentence is pronounced with the plainness of a weather report. On June 10th, 1692, Bridget Bishop is taken to Gallows Hill, where the wind is an unhelpful witness and the ground is too familiar with burials. The rope performs its terrible competence. A hat blows off someone's head. The crowd looks all at once and then looks away. The first life taken by the court confirms the court's right to take life. From that confirmation, the rest will follow as obediently as a child to a voice raised at the door. Evening knits the village back together, house by house, but the seam is visible. The meeting house empties to a hush that feels like shame. The parsonage door closes on prayers that do not comfort. Somewhere a mother counts her children twice, as if a number could change the year. The warrants do not stop. The lists grow. The jailer's bills learn new columns. What began as children's fits has become a machine that prints certainty from fear. Neighbors who once borrowed sugar now borrow courage and cannot always find it. The line has been crossed. The hill has learned the weight of judgment, and the law, relieved to be decisive, will repeat itself. In the months ahead, there will be more hangings and one death beneath stones. And afterward, there will be apologies written in the small hand of regret. But for now, the lesson is simpler and harder. A village that practiced division has found a way to make it holy. This first episode ends with the machine in motion and the people inside it. The next will show how far that machine can run before it breaks, and how high a price a community pays to remember how to stop it.